ecosystem has its various cycles, with the water cycle, the nutrient cycle, and then how humans interact and interfere with these cycles through deforestation and the effects of deforestation at different scales. So what we're going to look at now is how can we either repair the damage that's already been done or limit future damage. So a quick side note, at the moment, depending on when you're listening to this recording, there's an excellent documentary on BBC iPlayer. David Attenborough did a documentary called Extinction the Facts. And it talks a lot about how we are facing massive biodiversity loss as a result of overfishing in the oceans and, of course, as a result of deforestation in the rainforests. It fits right in with what we're talking about at the moment. So I'm currently recording this in the middle of September 2020. But it'll be on BBC iPlayer for a year. Go on, watch it. It's incredible. Just a warning before you do watch it. The first half, it is pretty shocking. It's quite, it's quite intense. And then the second half moves on to how we can sustainably manage the impact and reduce the risk of extinction of species on a massive scale. So it links in with this really, really well. So go on and have a watch of that on BBC iPlayer. But right now, pause the recording for a moment, go ahead and write the title as usual, and we'll get started. Okay, so by this point in your GCSE course, you're very aware of the concept of sustainability, I would hope. It's a huge underpinning concept with everything we talk about in geography. So to sustain means to keep something going. Okay, so whether it's allowing something to continue into the future that makes people a lot of money, or it's going to provide job opportunities, it could be redeveloping an inner city area. It could be, in this case, making money from the rainforest. But it needs to be done in a way that doesn't cause damage to people, traditions, culture, preserves jobs, the economy. Maybe it produces jobs, provides jobs, it boosts the economy in some way, or the environment. Now, the really official definition that we're going to write in is meeting the needs of today. So in the case of deforestation, it's making money for Brazil without compromising the ability for future generations to meet their needs. So you're not damaging people and culture of the tribes in the rainforest, and you're not damaging the ecosystem itself. So could you go ahead and write down that definition, please? And then if you copy and paste this link from the PowerPoint that's on the Moodle page, this shows you an example of a way that Brazil could continue to make money and continue to provide jobs for those that need it most without damaging the ecosystem in the long term. It's called ecotourism. So it's also going to raise awareness of the plight of the rainforest, because people from around the world come and stay in the rainforest, in eco-lodges, and learn about the wildlife, learn about sustainable ways of preserving the wildlife. And the money that the guides earn, it's going directly to them, directly to the area and to the people that need it most. So pause the recording here a minute and do two things. Write down that definition of sustainable management, and go ahead and take a quick look at this YouTube clip. Technical difficulties, eh? There we go. Right then, so moving on. Here are some key terms that we're going to be using today. Now, these are examples of sustainable management strategies. Agroforestry. Being taken from the word agriculture, farming. This is the idea that you're allowing farmers to continue to produce crops within the rainforest without clearing the rainforest. So you leave the majority of the rainforest intact and grow your crops in amongst it. National parks and reserves, this is where you completely protect a large area. No development, no human activity other than maybe some ecotourism, but nothing is allowed in that area. Rainforest corridors. So we've seen quite often, and if you watch the documentary that I mentioned on the starter slide, what often happens is the patches that are deforested start to kind of link up, and it leaves isolated areas of rainforest completely cut off from other areas, all on their own. So the animals living in there, they're going to start fighting over territory, they're going to run out of food, they're going to run out of resources. So what rainforest corridors do is those remaining patches of rainforest in amongst the deforestation, you either replant or you leave it in the first place, a little strip of rainforest that connects those cut-off patches, and that means that animals can move between them, and it helps to preserve the species. It also means you're going to get less roadkill because animals aren't forced to cross roads and things like that to reach other patches of rainforest and food sources. So just like corridors connect classrooms in school, little strips of rainforest left intact or replanted will connect the isolated areas and allow species numbers to be protected. Selective logging, now we use wood, of course we do, for construction, for furniture, for production of all kinds of materials. But often what happens is with commercial logging, which is large-scale business logging, they just go in and clear the entire area, and you might deforest tens of hectares, hundreds of hectares sometimes, and you just drag out a few trees that are actually worth anything, like mahogany or rosewood. So you've destroyed the entire habitat for a handful of trees that are actually valuable. What you do with selective logging is you go in and you mark and find the trees that are actually worth something, and you only cut down those trees and then drag them out. Sometimes they use timber elephants. If you look up timber elephants on YouTube, they've got a wonderful example of some orphaned elephants that were rescued from their parents had become victims of poachers. And they were using them to remove the logs from the forest. So there's then no machinery, no roads, no air pollution. It's a far more sustainable way of, you're still going to make hundreds, sometimes thousands of dollars from a single rosewood tree, but you're leaving the surrounding forest intact. And then finally, ecotourism, which is something we've touched on already. So pause the recording here for a moment, go ahead and write these down into your book because you're going to see them crop up a lot in the next task that we're about to do. Okay, so when it comes to a sustainable management strategy being effective, it needs to allow usually low educated or uneducated workers in LICs to make money to support their family. So it needs to provide jobs in some way that are accessible to people with low literacy levels so they can earn money to support their family, probably earn a little bit of money that goes back into the economy somehow. Maybe there's exports still going on so that Brazil's economy continues to be boosted, and they can use that money to reinvest in education, healthcare, infrastructure to become more developed, because that's the driving force behind deforestation. Brazil, in the case of the Amazon, needs to make money. They want to become more developed. They want more opportunities. That's only fair. So we need to do it in a way that they can still make money and it still provides jobs, but it protects culture, it protects tribes. The money goes directly to the people that need it most. Maybe it provides more opportunities for women to earn money to support their family because equal rights is an issue in LICs. And of course, underpinning all of that, it's protecting and preserving the rainforest ecosystem and protecting and preserving animal populations. So what you've got is several resources, okay? One is about agroforestry. One is about commercial logging. Now, commercial logging, like I said, is the wide-scale business-level logging. You just rip down the whole area and just drag a few trees out that are worth anything. And there's also then two more sheets, I think. One is about ecotourism and one is about nature reserves. So you've got four sources. What I'd like you to do in your books is take a whole page turned sideways and make this table. Okay, we've got the management strategies down the left-hand column here, agroforestry, commercial logging, reserves and corridors, and ecotourism. And then we're going to evaluate. Evaluate means to pick out the good and the bad. It's a very popular command word in GCSE style questioning. We've got to get a handle on it. To get you started, I've put some bullet points in so you can see the kind of thing that I'm looking for. So what I'd like you to do, first off, draw the table. Second off, go through the sources. If you've got a printer, great, then you can highlight in front of you. But if not, just pick out from reading them on the screen. You're looking for benefits and drawbacks, advantages and disadvantages. So anything that protects the rainforest, provides jobs, boosts the economy, is good for people, you're going to bullet point that. You're going to summarize it as an advantage of that strategy. Anything that means the money's not going to go directly to people that need it, anything that means that the rainforest is being destroyed or that tribal culture is being lost, that's going to go in the disadvantages. Now, as you can see in my examples here, bullet pointing is fine, dashes and equals, kind of summarized note-taking form is fine. Okay, so draw the table, highlight or pick out good and bad things about each project and summarize them into this table. You can copy and complete what I've got here already, obviously, to get you going. 1 or 2 bullet points in each box is plenty. Okay, so pause the video here a moment and go ahead and do that. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to take the notes that we've made and use them as a reference to try an exam style evaluate question. Okay, this would be a 6, sometimes maybe even an 8 marker, more commonly a 6 marker. Evaluate 1 or more sustainable management strategies for managing deforestation in the Amazon rainforest. So it's an evaluate question. Each strategy you talk about, you're going to have to talk about the advantages and disadvantages. If you only talk about it one-sided, you won't get out of it's level marked. Same. If you only talk about one side, you won't get out of level 2 out of 4 levels. Sustainable management strategies for managing the rainforest. Now it's worth 6 marks. It says 1 or more. Don't make life hard for yourself. Talk about more than one. All right. So the command word is evaluate. You've got to talk about both sides. It says 1 or more. Like I said, don't make it tricky for yourself. Talk about more than one. It's a 6 marker. So every point you make, you've got to elaborate it using these strategies. Use your elaborating words such as this means, therefore, as a result, consequently, so, furthermore, because. Use key terms wherever possible, and if you can, higher level punctuation like colons or semicolons or parentheses, which is the posh word for brackets. Okay? And watch your usual grammar, sentence structure, it's ironic, I can't say it. Sentence structure and punctuation. Okay, because it is an extended written answer. Now, if you're writing more than a page in your book, you're waffling. By the time you're really refined at answering these questions, you're aiming to hit a mark a minute. So an answer like this should take you 6 minutes. Okay. Now then, I have given you a little writing frame. So what you're going to want to do is a really short, quick introduction. For management strategies in the rainforest to be sustainable, they should. What you're doing here is you're showing the examiner that you are very au fait, you're very familiar and you understand what sustainable means. So for management strategies in the rainforest to be sustainable, they should protect the rainforest, not disturb local people or culture, whilst also allowing Brazil to make money and providing jobs for those that need it. Okay, so a little introduction that shows you understand exactly what this question wants to hear from you. And then you're going to talk about your 1 or more strategies. So one such strategy would be, this strategy involves, this is where, it is sustainable because, however. So what you've done here is you've said what's good and what's bad. Okay, now because it's a sustainability question, if you can use words like, it is sustainable because it provides jobs for local people who otherwise, with low literacy levels, would struggle to access a job to support their family, which means it's economically sustainable. If you can kind of refer directly to what type of sustainable it is it economically sustainable because it provides jobs or money? Is it environmentally sustainable? Is it socially sustainable? Okay. Obviously, don't copy that exactly as it is, where it says this strategy involves / this is where. Just pick one. Yeah. So one such strategy is ecotourism. This strategy involves da 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 da, or this is where da 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 da. Okay. And then pick maybe one more strategy to talk about. It's worth 6 marks. So if you talk in good detail about 2 strategies, both the upsides and downsides, with well elaborated points and key terms, that'll be plenty. Okay. So I want you to go ahead and give it a try. You don't have to use my writing frame, but it's there to guide you if you'd like. Refer to the previous slide as well as a bit of a success criteria on what you need to remember to include. If you're writing more than an A4 page in your books, you're waffling. This should take you 6 minutes by the time you get really, really refined with this skill and you're actually sat in that exam hall in the summer. Okay, so pause the video here a moment and go ahead and give it a try. Okay, so I have created a model answer for you, which I hope you haven't gone ahead and cheated with with looking at the next slide or printing out the model answer that's in the file on Moodle. So what I've got here is 3 sections: an intro, well elaborated points about the upsides and downsides of one strategy, and then well elaborated points about the upsides and downsides of a second strategy. So what that might look like: for management strategies to be sustainable, they should ensure that Brazil can continue to benefit economically and socially while still protecting the rainforest. Short, sweet, but I've shoved it in the examiner's face that I know exactly what sustainability means. One such strategy could be ecotourism. This is where tourism is allowed to continue in the area with minimal impact on the environment. It is socially sustainable, so I'm using key terms already, because it employs local people. This means, so I'm now elaborating, I'm explaining how it benefits local people. So this means locals can get a job even with lower levels of education. Meaning, I'm elaborating further, they can earn a living to support their family and improve their standard of living. Nice key term. Also making it economically sustainable. Okay, so I've said it's good for people and it's providing money for them. So it kind of hits 2 of the 3 elements of sustainability. In addition, so I'm really getting down to it now, I'm elaborating this point even further. Eco-lodges tend to use very little water and use networks that already exist, rivers for example, to travel places by boat. This means there is no large-scale forest clearance to make way for extra roads and hotels, only small amounts of water are taken from local rivers. This means, so I'm elaborating further again, local tribes and animal populations are left undisturbed, protecting biodiversity. Nice key term. So far, all I've talked about though is the good. So if I stop there, I wouldn't get out of level 2 with the marking, which would cap me at 2 or 3 out of 6 so far. However, so now I'm evaluating. Now I'm doing the downside. There may be some instances where foreigners are disrespectful to local cultures or drop litter, which could cause wildlife to choke if they eat it by mistake. Okay, and I've missed an opportunity here to maybe take it a little bit further, which would mean wildlife populations could decline. I could also elaborate on this a little bit further, which would mean traditional ways of life could be lost, which is not socially sustainable. All right, but I'm just mindful, obviously, I'm trying to give you an example of something you could write in 6 minutes. Another strategy is national parks. This is very environmentally sustainable, so again, I'm being very specific, as there is no logging or development allowed in these areas at all. This means, so I'm now going to say how it is environmentally sustainable. This means that the rainforest remains completely intact, preserving habitats and the carbon sink. Nice key term. So I could even elaborate that point a bit further and said that because it's preserving the carbon sink, this has a global benefit reducing climate change. They love to hear about links to wider concepts, remember. So if you can link something to the water cycle or the carbon cycle or climate change, they love that. It's also socially sustainable as indigenous tribes. Nice key term. Are not disturbed and their culture is not lost. So upsides. However, I'm addressing the downsides. I'm evaluating. Due to the high level of protection, it means there is no money being made from tourism, agriculture or logging, so it is not economically sustainable because no money is being made for Brazil's economy, which means they have no further income to invest in education and healthcare and infrastructure to move towards becoming a HIC. So if this was an 8 marker, I could take some of these points even further. But here is a 6 marker example of how to intro, good and bad about one, good and bad about another. If you'd handwritten this into your book, it'd probably take you, depending on the size of your writing, maybe 3/4 of a page. And like I said, by the time you're super practiced at it, you'd be able to smash that in 6 minutes in an exam hall. Okay. Now, if you like and you have a printer, you can copy and print this example and cut and stick it into your book and write around it the things that I've just pointed out, if you like, as an exercise in really picking apart a model answer and what's good about it, and even in some places how I actually could have extended those points further if this were an 8 instead of a 6 marker, linking it to wider concepts such as Brazil's reinvestment in its education, healthcare and infrastructure, or linking it to wider concepts such as the carbon sink being preserved, which means it could help to reduce climate change because trees absorb CO2. Okay. So that is lesson 15, Sustainable Rainforest Management completed. That's the rainforest done. Now, the specification says that we have to compare and contrast it with another large-scale ecosystem. So what we're going to do next lesson is look at Savannah Grassland. So this ecosystem is hot and wet all year round. Savannah grasslands have a much more distinct dry season than a very wet season, whereas the rainforests don't really have seasons. So we're going to compare and contrast the vegetation, the animals, and how people use the ecosystem. So we'll move on to that next lesson. But for now, take a break. Well done. Lesson 15, done and dusted.